Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu Bhajana Anukula Shuddha Bhakata Shiva Paramasiddhi Premalatikara Mula Madhavatiti Bhakti Janani Jatane Palana Kari Madhavatiti Krishna Bhashati Bhashati Bali Parama Adare Bali Gauramara Deshabasthane Karalo Brahmana Range Deshabasthana Heribo Ami Pranay Bhakata Sangye Mridanga Bada Shunite Man Abhashara Shada Jache Gaura Bihita Kirtana Shuni Ananda Hridaya Nache Yugala Murti Deki Amor Parama Ananda Hai Prasada Shiva Karite Hai Shakala Prapancha Jai Vidina Grihe Bhajana Deki Grihete Goloka Bhai Charana Shidhu Dekiya Ganga Shukana Shima Pai Julashi Deki Jurai Pran Madhava Toshani Jani Gaura Priya Shaka Shebane Jivana Shata Kamani Bhakati Vinoda Krishna Bhajane Anukul Pai Jaha Pratidi Bashe Paramashu Keshikara Karaye Ta Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu, the dust of the lotus feet of devotees, is very favorable for bhajan. Bhajan means activities of directly meant for advancement in devotional service. This is a song by Bhakti Thakur. He's describing, just like Lokanath Maharaj was saying in the class this morning, Anukul Yatsya Sankalpa. What is Anukul, what is favorable for advancement in devotional service. So he's describing some of these things, and he's Bhakti Vinod, means who takes pleasure in bhakti, and he's describing all these favorable activities favorable for advancement in Krishna consciousness that he practices every day and feels great pleasure in doing so. So he says also, Bhakata Sheva Paramashiti Prema Latikara Mula, service to devotees is itself the topmost perfection and the very root of the tree or of the creeper of love of God. Then Madhava Titi, the day of Madhav, Haribasha, it's called. Ekadashi, also called. Haribasha means the day of Hari, or Madhava Titi. Titi means the lunar day. So that's the day dedicated to Madhav. You'll find other days, some day is for Ganesh, some day is for Shiva, some days for Durga. People are doing different practices. Those who are devotees or of votaries, we can say, not exactly votaries of Durga or Hanuman, they observe different things on different days. But Vaishnavas, they observe Harivasa, the practices which are recommended on that day for pleasing Hari. This day is very dear to him. So Madhava Titi Bhakti Janani is the mother, this Ekadashi day is the mother of devotion. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I observe this very carefully. If I observe this, because it's an opportunity to advance more in Krishna consciousness. Just like now it's Purushottam Mas, the month, the whole month, not just one day, the whole month for Lord Hari. Purushottam, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's very good you organize this camp in this month, because in this month it's recommended one should hear and chant about Krishna more. So that will be the full-time activity of devotees at this camp. Krishna Bhashati Bhashati Bali, that place where Krishna stays. Krishna is everywhere, but he especially stays. Nahang, what is that? Nahang tishtami vaikunte yoginam hridiyeshu va yatra gayanti madbhakta tatra tishtami narada. He says, I don't live in Vaikuntha. The Lord doesn't live in Vaikuntha. He lives in Vaikuntha. He doesn't live in the hearts of the yogi. He lives. But he especially lives where my devotees are chanting my glories. There you will really find me, Narad. So he's everywhere, and he's in his temples. So these are the places worth living in, or residing in, or close to, the temples of the Lord, where the Lord is worshipped. Krishna, or the dhams, Mayapur, Vrindavan Dham. So these places we should reside in. So you can make also Ljubljana, or maybe this top of the mountain. Every town, village, in between. Where is this? Not a town, it's not a village, it's not in between even. So, it's the end of the material world. And from here you go up and up and up and up and go back to Godhead. That's all. So, where there is Krishna, we should reside in that place where there is chanting of the glories of Krishna. We shouldn't go to any other place. Bhashati Boli Parama Adore Bori. So I choose to live in such a place, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. I choose to live in such a place with great reverence. I choose such a place. Of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, among the residences of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he moved around a lot. In those days people didn't move around a lot, but he was maybe the first generation of modern Indians. And from the external point of view, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was serving the government, and he was employed first of all as a teacher, and then as a magistrate. So he was on government service. He was posted in different places. So he had residences in different places in what's now Bihar, and then Narail in Jeshur. He was living on a houseboat actually in Jeshur district, now in Bangladesh. The three famous residences of his are in Puri. That's most famous because that was the birthplace of Bimala Prasad, later to be known as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. Then he constructed that was a house, that was a rented house in Puri, but he later constructed two houses. The second of them was in Godrum. Nadia Godrume Nityananda Mahajan Patiyache Nama Harta Jivera Karan. So he sang so many songs he made so many songs about Godrum. That was his place of residence. What is that? Amishananda Shukadabashi Radhika Madhava Charanadasi. He sang, I am a resident of Swananda Sukada Kunj, and a maid servant of the lotus feet of Radhika Madhava. So that was one residence he made, and the other residence he made was in Calcutta, which is not a dham. Calcutta means it's a place of Kali. And even Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj told Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he told Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Vashabhanavi Devi Dayata Das, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, you come and live with me. So one time Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he sent a message to Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Calcutta, you come and live with me. Don't live in that place of Kali. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent blessings back to Gaur-Kishore with the message that where I live is not the place of Kali. He made the house Bhakti Bhavan. When he was overseeing the construction of that house with his hands in his bead bag, chanting and very enthusiastic, and some people seeing this said that maybe he should not be in the legal department of the government, he should be transferred to the public works department. He's so eagerly what is this? He's overseeing the construction of a house with great eagerness. It seems his residential place. What is this? It seems like he's a materialist. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said, when I see this house being constructed, I have great enthusiasm, because he's not building it for his sense gratification. Bhakti Bhavan, that house is known as Bhakti Bhavan. But he's building it for the service of the Lord and for the service of the devotees. Therefore he showed great enthusiasm in constructing that house, not for his sense gratification. So, Gauramara Jeshabasthane Karala Brahmana Range. All those places which my Gaur, my Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited with great happiness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He visited so many places. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Sheshabasthana Hariboami. I want to see all those places. I will see all those places in the association of loving devotees. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually did visit many of the holy places connected with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. He made a point of traveling here and there and visiting all these different places. Mridanga bada shunite man abashara shada jache. He says that I always desire to have the opportunity to hear the sound of the mridanga. Nowadays it's becoming popular in ISKCON to have this kind of Caribbean bongo drums, but that is not same as mridanga. You've seen that? They play that. So that gives a good heavy beat, but it's not sweet like mridanga, which is this mridanga and kartal, they are is part of the eternal paraphernalia of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. It's not a material instrument. There are so many instruments maybe invented. And even in Indian classical music, there are so many instruments which are originally meant for the pleasure of the Lord. You'll find in traditional temples that they'll play concerts for the pleasure of the Lord. At Nathdwara, early in the morning, there'll be musicians there. And that's meant in any temple. We didn't institute this yet in ISKCON, but there should be nice concerts played for the pleasure of the Lord. Not this rock and roll concert, but tasteful music with Veena, Esraj, and all these nice Vedic instruments. But especially this Kol Kartal. This is the paraphernalia of the Lord. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I always desire to hear this sound, mridanga playing in kirtan. And Gaura Bihita Kirtana Shuni, not just the mridangas playing, but the kirtan will be the sound, the glorification, the song of the glorifying the Lord. That will be going on. The Gaura Bihita, that which is approve, that which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu likes. So that means Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And there are so many other kirtans. This is a book full of, this is a small selection from Bengali kirtans. There's a few Sanskrit songs here also, but few Hindi, but mostly. This is only a small selection of our Gauriya Vaishnava Padavali, or songs. So many wonderful songs. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaura Bihita Kirtana Shuni, Anande Hridaya Nache, my heart dances in pleasure, hearing that kirtan. Jugala Murti Dekhiya Mo Parama Ananda Hoy, seeing the deities of Radha and Krishna gives me the greatest pleasure. Then Prasada Sheva, where there are deities, there's also should be offering and distribution of prasad, and we also take prasad. So Prasada Sheva Karite Hoy, Shakala Prapancha Joy, simply by honoring the prasadam offered to the Lord, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says we can cross over all this. We can cross over all the inebrieties of this material, all the anarthas, all the contaminations of this material world. Jidina grihe bhajana deki, grihe te goloka bhai. My home is transformed into Golok by performing all these activities. That's actually a fact. If in our homes we're actually making Krishna as the center, then our home is Golok Vrindavan. It's not different. There's a difference. There's a great difference. If we go into the homes of materialistic people and the homes of devotees, it may be in the same apartment block. It may be the next door building. Then the design of the house is exactly the same. If you're in an apartment building, then it's all the same. The basic structure. It's so many meters wide. This room is so many meters wide. The wall is this high, and the kitchen is here. So it's all designed. It all looks the same. There may be some little differences. They put some chairs here and in a different room, and the chairs in a different place. But basically the same design. But if we walk into the home of a devotee and the home of a materialistic person, there's a great difference in atmosphere, isn't it? We can sense there's a great difference, because the home of a materialist is materialistic. It's just hellish, actually. I remember years ago, of course, going on book distribution in the West, so many experiences, so many homes we went to. Actually, not so many homes, because we used to mostly do on the street, but sometimes we used to go door to door also. So I remember one evening in Birmingham. If you've ever heard of Birmingham, that's the way they say it in Birmingham, which is the second biggest city in England, has the distinction of being the second biggest city in England. So one evening going there on door to door book distribution. So I knocked on the door, and the door opened, and the woman opened the door in a look of complete stress and distress, on a completely harassed look on her face. And the door opened, and then there's the stink of meat cooking comes out, and then the dog is, I didn't see, but you can hear the dog is barking, the children are screaming, and the television's blaring away, and the father's yelling, "Shut up!" It's just complete. And she's like completely suffering, in the middle of all this. She's trying to prepare the meal, and it's just total chaos. And what a scene, And then you compare when you go to a devotee's home, you don't even knock the door before. So many homes I visited in Bengal and so many places. In Bengal, when we were going to a village, they'd all be out there 1 kilometer before with a kirtan party. It's such a difference. And you enter a devotee's home, and there's, instead of the stink of meat, there's the nice smell of incense offered to the Lord, and the whole atmosphere is pervaded with Krishna consciousness. So it's non-different from the spiritual world, because the spiritual world means everything is meant for the pleasure of Krishna. So that is the home of a devotee. Everything is meant for the pleasure of Krishna. So Charana Shidhu Dekiya Ganga, that worshipping deities means every day bathing the Lord. So every day bathing the Lord, just like we take bath every day. So we bathe the Lord every day, and then we get Charanamrita, Ganga. Ganga means what has come from the lotus feet of the Lord. That Vamanavatar, he covered, his second step went up in the upper planetary system, stretched up and up and up, and his toe, that little dwarf, that his toe hit the edge of the world and went right through all the different planetary systems, and the Karnadak, the water of the causal ocean, leaked through and went through his toe and came down. And also Lord Brahma, seeing Lord Vamandev's foot passing his Brahma Loka, he leaned over from his lotus flower and from his kamandalu poured some water to wash his feet, because if a guest comes, you see this, you wash his feet. So Vamandev's foot is stretching up. Quick, put some water on. So all this combined to become Ganga water. So same thing, when we bathe the Lord, we take water which is coming from, we bathe the head and it comes over his feet. We call Charanamrita. So that's non-different from Ganga. You don't have the opportunity living in Croatia. You don't have Ganga here. You have various riekas. Oh, I don't know how you'd say that in plural in Croatian. But it's not the Ganga. It's not the same as the Ganga. But Ganga is there when we worship the Lord. We take Ganga water. So that's Charanamrita, Charana Sidhu. Sidhu is another word which means Amrita, nectar. So nectar from the lotus feet of the Lord, I see that's non-different from Ganga. And my happiness is unlimited. Sukha, this is another misspelling, should be Sukha Nasimapa. I don't find the limits of my happiness. Sukha Sasimapai means I do find the limit, which actually is also acceptable, but it's not exactly what Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote. Tulasi deki jurai pran. When I see Tulasi, then I feel, oh, very nice. Because Madhava Toshani, I know that she is the one, she gives satisfaction to Madhava. Madhava means the husband of Lakshmi Devi. But actually, the Lord won't accept food without Tulsi. So, even Lakshmi is bringing. He's the husband of the goddess of fortune. Where's Tulsi? So, she gives satisfaction to Madhava. I know this. Madhava Toshani Jani. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Jani means I know. Gaura Priya, Shaka Shiva, when Jivana Sharthaka Mani, I feel my life is successful when I honor that Shak Prasad. Shak means in the West we say spinach, but there are so many varieties. Not here. Actually here you have varieties also, but they only cultivate one variety, but so many must be growing wild. Just like this nettles, I was saying, you can cook that now. Now it's not in season. This dandelion, you can also cook as a kind of shak. So there are probably so many varieties here which you don't know about. But in Bengal also many grow wild. They don't cultivate them. Some of them they don't cultivate them, but they just grow wild. And then people pick up, like this helancha shak, they pick up from the ponds. It just grows wild, and then they cook that. It's very bitter, but it's very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, when I take this is favorite food of Gauriya Vaishnavas. Shak, different varieties. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's favorite. And generally the Vaishnavas, they all like this. So he says, I feel my life is successful. And actually it is successful because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the benediction for different kinds of shak. Just like who takes this Achuta shak. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't, in normal Bengali they say Helancha shak, Lao shak, Palong shak, Lal shak. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave all different names of Vishnu to these different shaks. So he said, by eating this Achuta shak, you get one kind of benediction. You get the association of devotees life after life. And then by eating another kind of shak, you get another benediction that you'll attain Krishna Prem. So it's a very nice way to get benedictions. Bhakti Vinod, Krishna Bhajane, Anukul Pai Jaha. Bhakti Vinod Thakur says that whatever I find is favorable for advancement in Krishna consciousness, then Pratiti Bashe, every day, Parama Shuke, with great happiness, Shikara Karaye Taha, I accept all these things. I accept all these practices in my life. So this is a very nice, happy song. Devotees are always happy. Sometimes devotees tell that, well, I'm feeling depressed. I don't know how it's possible, but if you ever feel depressed, then you sing this song. This is a happy song. This purport of this song is chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So it's every verse he's saying, I'm feeling very happy in Krishna consciousness. So the topic of the seminar is love and peace. So I'll speak on that. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaurodaya Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Jamonado Jayatam Surato Pangar Mama Mandamatem Gatihi Mad Sarvasvabadam Bhojo Radha Madanamohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumata Srimad Ratnagar Singhasanasta Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prashtha Libhi Sevyamana Smarami Shriman Rasarasarampi Vangshi Vata Tatastataha Karshan Venur Swanayar Gopir Gopinatha Sri Estanaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. From tomorrow, I think we can sing different bhajans in these sessions, and then I'll take questions and answers. So if you can write down. If you have various questions, it's often very interesting too. Devotees are reading Prabhupada's books and they bring out different questions. And many times I never thought of these questions either. So we can bring that up. There's a very interesting question just asked to me in this way. I never thought of it. But I had to think about it quickly. So it brings out so many different points of philosophy, of understanding Krishna. So the seminar is love and peace. As you know, Srila Prabhupada first propagated this Krishna conscious movement in the Western countries among the hippies, among whom love and peace was one of their mottos. Make love, not war. That was one of their sayings, because the Vietnam War was going on. So they wanted peace, and make love, not war. Love and peace. So this Krishna conscious movement became very attractive to the hippies, because it seemed to embody that principle those principles of love and peace. You see the devotees, they're dressed in these exotic Eastern clothes, and they sing and dance in the streets with these exotic instruments, and they're vegetarians, which wasn't very common in those days. And they have incense and flowers. There was a famous song, if you ever go to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. So that became a fashion, wearing flowers in the hair. And men having long hair. That was a little different in our movement. Men didn't have long hair, but anyway, it was different. It wasn't the short hair of the straight people in America. The hippies, they would use this term straight. They would use it as a kind of pejorative term. You know, pejorative means like, you fool. Yeah. So fool is a pejorative term. It means something when you're saying it has some built-in disdain. You know what disdain means? Dislike or something like that. Disgust, dislike, like that. So straight. Straight means someone who, they live the normal life. So hippies, they look down on straights. So definitely Hare Krishna may have had no hair, but they weren't straight. That's why I saw this video of Sridhar Maharaj. Who's going to make that? So I brought that. Someone has to make DVDs. I brought from Niranjan Maharaj one DVD of. Someone can arrange that in Ljubljana. We can do. You can arrange that. Put it on your list. All right. Of Sridhar Maharaj at the Woodstock, so-called Woodstock festival in Poland. So he was talking really heavily at the hippies and saying, "You're just imitation hippies," because they're all like university students and they're doing jobs. They're not real. The real hippies dropped out of society. They didn't have jobs. They didn't work. They were just loitering on the streets. They dropped out. They rebelled. The hippie movement was a rebellion against the straight society. So he was saying, you're imitation hippies, because the hippies used to say with disdain also as a pejorative term, weekend hippies, because they'd work 5 days a week and then they'd be a hippie. But the real hippies dropped out. So Sridhar Maharaj he was so heavy. And Indra Maharaj was saying, you have to preach love and peace. And he was saying, you're just imitation hippies, and you what are you doing? You're spoiling your life. And then someone threw a beer bottle at him. That doesn't come. And he looked at him and said, "That's not my brand." So anyway, we're talking about the hippies. So they were into love and peace. So Krishna consciousness had instant appeal for the hippies, because Krishna consciousness represented love and peace. And we were talking, not we, I wasn't part of it at that time. I wasn't even grown up enough to be a hippie in 1966. I became a hippie later. So Prabhupada and his early troop of followers, they're speaking of love and peace. Love, the highest love of Krishna. Krishna plays on a flute. That's far out. And he has long hair. And he has a girlfriend. He's not married to her. Oh. And he's a vegetarian. So Krishna was very appealing to the hippies. Love and peace. So these qualities of the hippie movement, who can argue with them? I mean, what do people in the world want? Love and peace. And Krishna consciousness also, we're promoting love and peace. However, now comes however is a synonym of but. When we say the word but, it tends to refute everything that has been said before. So, but love and peace as understood in Krishna consciousness, it's got nothing to do with the love and peace of materialistic people. People in this material world want peace so they can make love, not war, so they can enjoy sense gratification. Make love, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, means have sex. I think that came in with the hippies. They made this term, make love. But now it's an accepted part of the English language. Make love. The idea that sex is love. But in Krishna consciousness, we don't know. Love has got nothing to do with sex. In fact, if you want love, then you forget the sex. Oh. You're not sure if you like this after all. And then Prabhupada, of course, he was teaching Bhagavad Gita. And the whole Bhagavad Gita hinges on Krishna convincing Arjuna to fight. And Prabhupada was teaching Bhagavad Gita among the hippies they didn't want the Vietnam War. Why should we go to war? Where's the sense gratification there? There's no sense gratification in, we want to stay in America, the land of the free, and enjoy the nice American girls. Why should we go to Vietnam in the jungles and have our brains blown out by the Viet Cong? If you're lucky, they'll blow your brains out, because if they capture you alive, they didn't treat the Americans very nicely when they captured them. I won't dilate here. So it's another song of the hippie era. It's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. There ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee! We're all gonna die. It's a famous song. This is what I was brought up on. I wish I was brought up on Krishna consciousness. But anyway, we were brought up in the hippie era. That's a famous, sarcastic song. Very joyfully singing that. What are we fighting for? Don't know, don't care. We're all going to die. So, open up the pearly gates means Pearl Harbor, which is connected with war. Still, I mean, the Japanese bombed it in 1944, but it was rebuilt and is still an American naval base from where they sailed to Vietnam to get their brains blown out. Of course, some of them came back. So some of them came back alive. I mean, some came back in. What do they call these bags? I can't even remember. They put dead bodies in. There's a word for it. I can't remember. And some never came back. I mean, they didn't find the bodies. Some of the bodies got blown to pieces, and some were still missing. They might still be wandering around in the jungles in Vietnam. You never know. A few years ago, they came across some American soldier hanging out in the Philippine jungles. They didn't know the Second World War had finished. Like 40 years later, they were afraid to come out. They thought the Japanese would capture them. Anyway, it was a time of revulsion against the Vietnam War, and they wanted peace so they could enjoy sense gratification. And Prabhupada was preaching Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is telling Arjuna, it is your duty to fight. That was not very popular among the hippies. Many of them, just like some of our devotees, they left America so that they didn't get the draft. They weren't drafted in the war. They went to countries like Sweden, like Yogindra Prabhu. He went to Sweden, and some went to America. Like Javornik Maharaj went to Canada, became a Canadian citizen to avoid going to war. And then from Canada he went to India. and others. There are quite a few devotees. They escaped the Vietnam War by going to other countries and taking up citizenship there. So there was the young people, we don't want to go to Vietnam. We want peace. We want to live peacefully so we can. But why do they want to live? Living in peace sounds like a very noble motive. That we want peace. They made the United Nations, and the United Nations troops go from country to country to bring peace to the country by engaging in war with the people there who they call terrorists or whatever, revolutionaries, or the people that don't agree with their view of, which doesn't agree with the United Nations view of how the world should be. So, although people want peace, we find that the world is always at war. As Prabhupada pointed out, they made the United Nations with the idea of establishing peace in the world. But there's been no Third World War, but there's so many battles and wars going on all over the place all the time. There's always some kind of war going on in some place. And nowadays, instead of wars, it's become more popular to have terrorism, as they call it, or some military, guerrilla insurgents, or something like this. So, and then the United Nations will go in and combat the terrorists, or whatever, or the people who don't agree with, or the governments they don't like, or whatever. So, anyway, this is just a personal opinion, but I think in some ways Hitler is better than he was better than George Bush, because at least Hitler, he had a theory that we're Germans and we want to dominate Europe. We're the best and we need more space, so we're going to take over Ukraine and all these different countries, because, might makes right. But the modern American policy, we want oil, they don't say that, but, in the name of peace and love and justice and humanity and fairness and all these things, they invade countries and bomb them and blast them, but it's all in the name of democracy, you see. So they want peace and love, but where is the peace and love? There's no peace, neither we're talking about wars, but even in people's personal lives, there's no peace. People, nowadays, if a husband and wife can live together without getting divorced, people think that, that's amazing. Even just recently, one of our god sisters passed away, and she'd been married to the same husband all her life. What a great achievement! It's considered something exceptional, but previously it was normal. I mean, everyone did that. I mean, they might throw the whole kitchen at each other every day, but mostly they didn't do that either. But even if they did, they would stay there. They didn't get divorced. They lived peacefully, more or less peacefully together. They didn't even. There was no question. It wasn't allowed by law, and then they didn't even think about it, divorce. The thought didn't even enter their minds. Just like, did any of you ever consider going to Paris, to the top of the Eiffel Tower, and taking off all your clothes and standing on your head? You ever thought of that? Probably not. I just thought of it now. I was just thinking of something ridiculous I could give as an example. So it's like that. People, they didn't think about it. It's like, they just didn't think about it. But then they introduced and as soon as the divorce law is introduced, then people think, oh, well, maybe we could do that. The divorce law was introduced in India by Pandit, so-called Pandit Nehru, for the advantage of his daughter. So then the Hindus, they thought, now they're doing. It's a very normal thing. It's in India also. They're getting divorced. So people can't live peacefully, and there's no peace in family life. And now increasingly there's no family life. There is no. What do you mean when you say family? They talk about it's a very common thing, they talk about single parent family. You say that in Slovenia and Croatian also. Well, what is the meaning of a single parent family? There's not a family. Family means husband, wife, children, and that's not all. It means grandparents, uncles, aunts, mama, mummy, and it's a whole big thing. And then cows, goats, and dogs also, not in the house, but outside. There'll be throw them some chapatis like this. It's a whole big thing. And then eventually they made family means hum do hamare do in India. We are two and we have two. So husband, wife and two children in some apartment block. And then they made single parent family. And then that's no family. And now in America they're allowing homosexual marriage. That means that they husband and husband, not husband and wife, or wife and wife, and they can adopt children, and and they're saying it's also a family, because what is a family? A family means that we're living together and we're committed, and it doesn't have to be husband and wife. It can be two men or two women. It's because the family is now just based, or what they call the family is just based on sense gratification. The marriage is you go to some government office and you sign some paper. There's no religious ceremony. Or if they have a religious ceremony, they do out of some sentiment only. Just like I went to the marriage of my sister many years ago. I never saw her in a church any other time. But when she got married, she went to the church. Because it's nice, they had the bells ringing and dress in a white satin, and it's nice to do it in a church. But there's no real religious commitment. So when marriage was no longer a sacred commitment, even in the Catholic Church, the marriage is one of the sacraments, isn't it? As far as I remember, going back, I can remember the old pop songs easily, but I can't remember the Christian. It's one of the 7 sacraments, right? So marriage is a sacrament. It's considered sacred. It means that there's some commitment to God. But when that was taken out, then it's only for sense gratification. And when there's no solid basis on a sense gratification, it was only for sense gratification. Well, the girl next door, she seems better to me for sense gratification than the wife next door, someone else's wife. Well, I already enjoyed my wife so many times, and it looks like better sense gratification next door. So, and then where's the family? There's no family. So there's no peace in family. In family life, the husband is always afraid the wife will run away, and the wife is always afraid the husband will run away. And there's no strong bond. There's no responsible commitment on the basis of God consciousness. So as Prabhupada pointed out, it's just cat and dog life. And if you as Prabhupada said about the United Nations, if you put a bunch of dogs together, then how can you expect peace? They'll just bark. So that's it. United Nations, family. There's no peace in any home. And it's the same in India now. They have adopted the Western culture. And now it's the same. Every home is full of... No one is peaceful. The whole culture is completely spoiled. No one is... The family life, it's the same thing, because the basis is sense gratification. So there's no peace. And in people's minds, there's no peace. They're always agitated. Sada samudvigna, Prahlad Maharaj said. They're always full of anxieties. Chintam aparimeyam cha. Because of demoniac mentality. Always full of anxieties. Because they're always desiring sense gratification, which means immediately there is... what is that? Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, Nashochati, Nakangshati. Immediately there is akanksha, desire. I want this, I want this, I want this. Will I get, and will I lose what I presently have? Always full of anxiety. And immediately when we desire sense gratification, that puts us in competition with everyone else who's also desiring sense gratification. And we're desiring to dominate them and not to be dominated by others. So it's always this competition is going on. So no peace. There's no question of peace in this material world. What people call peace, they make some kind of, on the international level, they make some peace treaty. That, okay, we'll make some, you adjust yourself this much, you will adjust this much, and then both for our own sense gratification, we'll make some peace treaty that's conducive for both of our sense gratification. You don't disturb me, I don't disturb you. But you see, as soon as one nation finds they're in a position to violate that peace treaty and take advantage of the other nation, then they violate it. They make a peace treaty, and then they just, whenever they can, when they find it's to their national advantage, they just break it. So it's like that in human relations also, that we find people, they deal with each other very nicely. How are you? Dobar dan, and question, and good day, and all this. But when there's some threat to their sense gratification, then you'll find that the nice people, they change very quickly. They're not so nice. Everyone's nice because it creates a nice atmosphere in which we can enjoy sense gratification. They've made, instead of everyone grossly competing with everyone else, we'll all be nice to each other, but it's just some kind of mechanism, social mechanism by which they can all cultivate their self-interest for sense gratification. So you'll find, many years ago I remember I was in Denmark, where people are very nice. People in Denmark, they're very nice, and everyone has enough money because the government makes sure they take all the very heavy taxes, and then they distribute the wealth so that everyone has more or less the same money, and no one's richer than, more or less like that. So they're very nice. Yo means yes. So I was there for 5 months. So very nice, and then one time we were hitching a lift or someone, and we were in the car with a boy, with a young man with his girlfriend, and we were saying, what are you doing? And, oh, we're monks. I didn't seem to like that so much. And then he said, well, and we're vegetarian, and then his niceness changed. He said, I don't like anyone telling me what I have to eat. Like this. He felt threatened. Oh, vegetarian. Oh. In Denmark there are more pigs than people. It's the main business of the country. Pig business. Even in 2 towns that we visited, I saw in the center of the town they had huge bronze statues of pigs. So the pig is a very happy animal. You see, like in Denmark they say yo means yes. No. So very happy animal. But pigs can be very dangerous also. Be careful. They can bite you. They have wild pigs in the forests here. They're very dangerous, huh? Dangerous animals. They used to have in India, but not now. Maybe in Assam, that side you'll find. In general, not. There's no forest. They cut them all down, mostly. So if the pig finds his sense gratification is becoming, you see his tail is going like this. So he's a very happy animal. But as soon as his sense gratification is threatened, he can be very dangerous also. So this love and peace that the materialistic people, they're promoting. The peace means that we all live peacefully so that we can all enjoy sense gratification together. There was this song, famous song of John Lennon, Imagine. I can't remember that so well. Maybe you can. Imagine a world he was saying all the conditions in which where there's no wars, and Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine a world where there's no religion. That was, he considered, that was one condition for a peaceful world. So he was imagining what he considered an idealistic situation in which everyone can be very, very peaceful and happy and just everyone will love each other. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't work. So many communes were founded in the hippie era in which the idea is that we'll all just live very peacefully together. They never worked because people, they can't live peacefully. They have the idea that if we'll just live, if we all just live together and we'll all be nice to each other, and then everything will be wonderful. But somehow it never works out because what they call love, that we just love everyone, cosmic love. We all just love everyone, but that love isn't defined. In the material world, love means that we share our sense gratification. But there'll always, so that there won't be any envy, then we just share all the men share the women, and there's no, you don't have any one woman, and then someone else will become envious. So you just share them all. But then they just share venereal disease, and that's what happens. These are some of the results. It just doesn't work. Even if you think that we will live very happily and peacefully together, there are certain laws of nature which make it not possible. So these communes, they never work, because if one person has one kuna more than it. Oh, wait a minute, we're in Slovenia. What is it over here? What's the one tola more than someone else? Then someone else will be envious. Or if there may be one man who is more desirable for the women, and so who has got that man now? The other women will be envious. So always envy will be there, because that is the basic nature of this material world. We may say love and peace, but because we don't love Krishna, then Krishna bahimukhoya bhogavan chakare. Because we become inimical to Krishna, then we desire sense gratification. And our inimical attitude towards Krishna, although we talk of love because we want to enjoy what we call love, sense gratification, we talk of love, but actually underlying our whole attitude in this material world is one of envy. So we speak of love, but actually we are envious. We say love all, but there's no question of love. First of all, we can't love anyone if we don't know who they are. We think that we are the body, and we think love means just like make love, not war. We think love means having sex. They say, even there are many people who, there are many ideas that sex is spiritual. You see, and our relationship between husband and wife, what can you call the cornerstone or the capstone or the acme, the pinnacle, the highest point of our expression of love is sex, because we're living together for sense gratification, and the highest sense gratification is sex. So when we come together, it's spiritual, but it's not. It's just sense gratification, the same as the donkey on the hill is doing. It's the same thing. The donkey, the pig, it's the same thing. There's nothing spiritual about it. That was another mistake of the hippie movement, because they had three things in the hippie movement. The three things for the sense gratification, the three main things: sex, of course, drugs, and music. this rock music was all new at that time, and they're exploring different kinds of music and the different bands and the experimental music. And so sex and drugs, especially, and I guess music, I don't know, but especially, definitely sex and drugs, they produce some kind of euphoria. Yeah, you have the same word, okay. So it's euphoria means some kind of very, very high happiness, which seems above that. I mean, the happiness of eating, or the happiness of what is it? What is the happiness in this material world anyway? I'm just thinking of eating, and maybe that's what I like. Football game, okay. Well, maybe they get some euphoria when their team scores a goal. But the hippies weren't into sports. So they were into... it's concentrated sense gratification. It's more than eating hamburgers or whatever. It's the highest pleasure in this material world. So, and then drugs, and then it's some kind of... you probably all know. I don't have to explain to you. I also, unfortunately, I have some experience of that also. So it's the mind expansion. The hippies spoke of mind expansion. It's a euphoric kind of experience. And they consider that this is spiritual. Some of them even challenged Prabhupada that, how can you say LSD is not spiritual? Say, have you tried it? How can you say if you haven't tried it? So Prabhupada said that, well, this euphoria that you get from the LSD experience, does it last forever? No, it finishes. Then it can't be spiritual, because nasato vidyate bhava, na bhava vidyate sata. That which is actually spiritual, there's no end. So then they made the Hayagriva made a new motto. The hippies had the motto, make love, not war. And he made a new one, stay high forever, by chanting Hare Krishna. And whose question was that? Maybe that comes in Prabhupada Lamrita. Is there a platform of happiness that you can go up to that you never come down from? Because whatever it is, sex or music or drugs, you hit a high. They say high, have a high. You're taking the drug and there's some effect and it's increasing and increasing, and then you have a high. And then it fades off, and then you're just back to where you were before. Usually with some kind of depression also. These what are they called? Psychotropic drugs and stimulants. They have the side effect of having some, when you're finished with it, of some depression. Someone was telling me the other day about this drug called ecstasy, which that was before my time. I never experienced that. So I asked, is there a side effect? You get some depression? I said, yes. I just guessed that. So ecstasy, but that's not ecstasy then. If afterwards you get depression, then it may seem like ecstasy, but real ecstasy is yasmin sthite nadukena. You're situated in that position, fixed, and no depression, no unhappiness. So the endeavors of the hippies for peace and love, or the materialists, it's based on bodily sense gratification. There's no love. If we think love is loving the body, then it can't actually be love, because Just like you can't love a watch. You might say, oh, I love my watch. Not this watch, but maybe if it was a gold watch or something, then you might, no, it's just a watch. But if it's like a Rolex watch, you say, oh, I love my watch. All right. You may say, I love something. But when we say, I love something material, then it's understood that it's not in the same sense as when you say, I love my girlfriend. It's not love, it means it's some kind of strong emotional bond. But that's not actually love, because it's based on the body. And that love, like they say, it's consummated in sex life, in sex. But that just shows how shallow their love is, actually, if they think the high point of love is sex. Because the donkeys are doing the same. The donkeys don't have romantic stories. They don't have romantic novels, or they don't play violins underneath the window. They just have sex, that's all. They're more straightforward about it. So, but in human society we have this idea of love. But when you come down to it, when you throw away the violin and ultimately what Romeo is looking for in Juliet, it's sex, that's all. And they say, well, I fell in love, but but what is it that we're falling in love with? Why is it that men fall in love with beautiful young women and not ugly old women? If love is like some kind of spiritual exchange, that it's just based on, this person is so wonderful, then why is it? Actually you'll find that generally when we say old women, we'll think that they're more lovable than young women. Isn't it? We think old woman means very nice. We expect, isn't it? You'd think that an old woman generally will, in terms of personality, we talk about innocent old grandmothers. Of course, old, that word is a little redundant because you don't usually find young grandmothers, but innocent grandmothers, innocent old. So why people don't fall in love with them if it's just, that's such a wonderful, I love you not for your looks, but because you're such a wonderful person. But then if that beautiful young woman has some accident and her face is all cut up and someone throws acid in their face and it comes all burned up, then we find that people don't fall in love with them anymore. So actually it's bodily attraction. So there's no question. Actually there's what they call love in the material world. It's just some bodily relationship. And you may say, oh, now we're celebrating our 50 years marriage. It's very rare nowadays. So they live together, but still it may not only be sex, but it's because they're living together for mutual sense gratification. That's all. There's food, tongue, belly, genitals, all these things. So materialistic people, they want peace so they can enjoy sense gratification. And if someone threatens that situation of peace, just like we find that there are certain people who say, well, we should accept everyone's opinion. We'll just love people for what they are. Well, you shouldn't discriminate against homosexuals, or we should just love everyone for what they are, and we'll all live together and be happy. But that's the idea, that we should accept every opinion and not. That means there's actually no principles to their life. And we'll find that people who are like this, they're called liberals. They accept, we're very liberal, we accept everyone. They don't like religion. Because in religion there are principles. That the life should be led according to there are certain moral rules. If we say, well, we accept everyone, don't be judgmental. Have you heard? Don't judge people. You see, this person, he is, all right, we'll use that example again, homosexual. It is called homophobia, they call it when you're always talking about. But it's a very good example, because in the modern world it's become totally accepted, whereas previously it wasn't. And actually it's disgusting. But in the modern world it's become accepted. And it's a very good example of how in the modern age they say, well, we should just accept everyone and love everyone, whatever. So homosexuality is traditionally considered immoral. There's something wrong with that. But in the modern age they say that, well, we should just love everyone and accept everyone. But if we say like that, then immediately there are no principles. Because we have to accept everyone. As they say, accept people for what they are. But religion in this world means not to be what we are, but to strive for something higher. Actually, religion means to understand who we really are, which is that we are the eternal servant of Krishna. So that means that what we are thinking we are, this body, and if we're thinking I'm this body, that means for sense gratification, then we have to give that up and come to the platform of understanding that I am not this body, I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. So, the religious principle is to strive for something higher. Strive for that, for actual love on the spiritual platform, for love of Krishna. That cannot be attained if one is sinful. Because sinful life blocks, sense gratification blocks the consciousness which is required for developing love of God. So therefore there are principles. No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. So we are judgmental. Now in our ISKCON also we say, well, he's not following, but anyway, we're all devotees. So all right, if someone's chanting Hare Krishna, they may be a devotee, but they're not. We should see there's a difference between someone who's following and someone who's not following. It's not all the same. It's not that, well, you can, you break the principles and you also, we're also chanting Hare Krishna. Why are you discriminating? Discrimination must be there. Rupa Goswami has given us guidelines. Krishneti, what's that? Diksheti, how does that verse be? Krishneti yasagiritam manasa, yeah, that's that verse. Krishneti yasagiritam manasadriyat. That we can mentally offer respects to someone who's chanting Hare Krishna, but there's a difference between one who's initiated. And initiated doesn't mean that I sat in a sacrifice and now I'm breaking all the principles. And then you're, then what you took Diksha for. Diksha means initiation into following a process. So if we don't follow it means initiation into following a religious practice. So if you don't follow the religious practice, then the Diksha, it loses its meaning. So, discrimination should be there. Now, that doesn't mean hatefully, but pragmatically, we have to discriminate to see which devotees we should associate with for our spiritual advancement. Because if we associate with, if we think that, well, it's all the same, and it doesn't really matter whether you break the principle, once a year, twice a year, once a month, once a week, every day. It becomes like that. Once we decide to once we break the principles, then, and breaking the principle, but once we justify it, yes, it doesn't really matter, it's okay, then there's no end. Then we don't have any principle left. Even if by mistake we fall down. But if we know this is wrong and I must come back to the proper platform. Or even if someone may be very weak, but they understand, I'm weak, I'm fallen. But those who are following, oh yes, they're very good. He should feel ashamed actually. But if there's no shame, I'm just breaking the principles and no shame, then that becomes like the Prakrita Sahajya. That, we're chanting Hare Krishna, it doesn't matter whether you follow the principle. That's not the main thing, is to chant Hare Krishna. You've heard that before? The main thing is chanting Hare Krishna. Principles, you can follow if you like. So that blurs the distinction between what is actual Krishna consciousness and what isn't. And we can't actually get love of Krishna if we are violating the principles. It means we're talking of love of Krishna, but where is the love if we don't do what he says? He's the Prabhu. We are the Das. That is the relationship. Love of Krishna means it's a relationship. So in this, there are different relationships of love. Just like Maharaj was talking this morning, Madhurya Lila, the gopis' love for Krishna. Then there's the parental love. So these are all different, friendly love. But the basis of all of them is the attitude of service. The gopis, they are glorified as the topmost devotees because they act in a very free way with Krishna. But they do so for the pleasure of Krishna. Their attitude is underlying all these rasas is dasya ras. That's the basis. They will, a gopi may chastise Krishna, but they themselves may be feeling angry at Krishna. But this is arranged by the Leela Shakti because they are the fit persons to do so, and in this way give pleasure to Krishna by chastising him. So this actual love means for Krishna and his devotees, that comes concomitantly because Krishna is never alone. Krishna is always with his devotees. So this actual love means love of Krishna. There is no love in this material world. Prabhupada's pronouncements which shocked the hippies. There is no love in this material world. Their whole endeavor was for love. And Prabhupada said, there's no love in this material world. There's no love. Love means for Krishna. And peace, there's no peace in this. There'll never be peace. It's a dream. There's the United Nations or John Lennon, let there be peace. There'll never be peace. It's not possible. Because everyone is taking the position, Ishvaraham, Aham Bhogi, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. Everyone is competing with each other to be the controller and the enjoyer. In this material world, the basic motives are ichcha, dvesha, desire for sense gratification, and envy of others, which expands from envy of Krishna. So we should preach Krishna consciousness, love and peace, and teach people how there can actually be love and peace. It is not possible without Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada, so many wonderful examples Prabhupada gave. That one of concentric circles. If you throw stones in the water in the same point, then that will make concentric circles. But if you throw in different points, it will make overlapping, and there won't be any circle. They'll just make ripples. The waves will combat against each other, and all the circles will be broken. The harmony of the circle is broken by having different central points. So love and peace is possible by Krishna consciousness. We should preach this. We should understand this very clearly. Because if we don't understand it clearly, then it'll be unclear. And unclear means that then we'll be bringing in so many funny ideas how we can have love. We'll be introducing, just like I heard in America now, and it's been there in Europe also for some time, the devotees are organizing, not only organizing, but they have to pay. That some devotee has some diploma in counseling and getting in touch with your inner self, and they bring all the devotees together and they say, well, you have to give up your inhibitions and contact the real you in your heart, and then you can really advance in Krishna consciousness. And devotees are saying, oh, this is wonderful. We get rid of we go for a 5-day course and we get rid of all our anarthas, and it only costs $600. They found a better process than Rupa Goswami. Adar Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha Atha Bhajana Kriya. Then Anartha Nivriti. By bhajan. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Swaram. Then Anartha Nivriti. But now there's a new course in which you get in touch with your inner self. And you give up your inhibitions, you see, because we all have these mental inhibitions. So you have to give them up and just love everyone. So one of the things they do in that course is they embrace everyone, including maybe someone else's wife. And so, what is this? You're giving up those inhibitions. Those are inhibitions against immoral life. Embracing someone else's wife is adharma. And we say, well, we love everyone, and I love someone else's wife. And then they say, well, now I feel liberated from all my inhibitions. But I'm in touch with my inner self. But it's not. Our inner self is that who loves Krishna. If we look deeply into our heart, but not deep enough, and we find ourself without finding the soul, if it's only on the mental or emotional platform, we'll find our inner self. What is that inner self? Ishvaraham aham bhogi. I am the enjoyer. Give up our inhibitions means our inhibitions for sense gratification. So this is what they're doing in the name of love and peace in Krishna consciousness. We are having special counseling by which you get in touch with your inner self. But if you're actually in touch with your inner self, that means that if you're actually loving Krishna, then there's no question of embracing someone else's wife. It's just plainly bogus. But our so-called devotees become so covered by Maya that they think, this is wonderful. Now I'm really, for years I was chanting, and I didn't really make any advancement, but now in this 5-day course I've got rid of all those anarthas, and now I can really love Krishna. But their idea of loving Krishna is that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, and I'm a subordinate enjoyer, not far behind Krishna. That's what it comes to. That's if we take Krishna as Krishna is an enjoyer, I'm also an enjoyer. Let us all love and peace. The Sahajiyas like that. Krishna is the enjoyer, I'm also an enjoyer. Krishna consciousness is all love. But that is not love. That is debased, depraved life, which doesn't lead to Krishna. It leads to hell. Trividhang narakasidam, dwaram nashanamamana. Kama. The first gate leading to hell is lust. So love is actually possible when we get free from lust. And if we mistake lust for love, we can never advance in Krishna consciousness. Material lust appears to be the same as love, but it is not. Krishnendriya priti vancha tare... No, I'm getting better. Atendriya priti vancha tare bale kam. Krishnendriya priti vancha dare premana. It looks the same. Just like Prabhupada gave the example, iron and gold. They may appear to have similar characteristics, but they are quite different in quality. So lust and love. Lust means the desire for sense gratification. It is quite different from love. And the effect of cultivating lust, even though we call it love, is quite different from the effect of cultivating pure Krishna consciousness, which is free from all material desires. So we should understand this point very clearly, especially in the present time, when in the name of Krishna consciousness, so many bogus ideas are being propagated that you can incorporate this kind of sadhana, or you can take up this and it will help your Krishna, and it really helps you. Actually, what it means is lack of faith in the process given by Shastra and Acharyas. If we think we have to go to some special New Age course, or we have to incorporate some new process, it's actually people who are going, it means that they actually want lust. They've lost due to lack of association with devotees who are purely striving for pure Krishna consciousness, then they're not actually wanting Krishna consciousness. They want something else, but they want to keep the name, love. But this is a different love. That love, so-called love, that goes to hell. It's not. We should have a very clear understanding. What is the difference between Shuddha Bhakti and Kaitav Dharma, cheating in the name of religion? Kaitav Dharma, that means Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, and also, actually practically worse than Dharma, Artha, Kama, it's actually worse than Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, is pretending to be Krishna conscious but not actually striving to be for pure devotional service. It's actually worse because in Dharma there's morality. Dharma is sometimes translated as morality. It means more than that, but Dharma subsumes morality and a lot more. But in the name of Krishna consciousness, if we go for this so-called love, which is on the material platform, that kama, which is not regulated by dharma, becomes adharma. So the so-called Krishna consciousness, which is not based on Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Adi, Pancharatra, Vidhi, that must be adharma. So there's much more to say about this. I won't say any more because the time is up. From tomorrow I'm going to be taking, I could speak more on this also. I probably will. But anyway, I suspect that most of you, or all of you here, are understanding the basic principle, what I'm talking. I'm speaking philosophically on a topic which I think you all understand and accept. Otherwise, I don't think you'll be at this camp. They made the rules so that the New Age so-called Sahajiya, they won't come here. It's good to have some strict rules and regulations, actually. Because then those who are not serious won't come. So it's good. Sometimes we say, well, let's make it all very liberal and then more people will come. Better make it, no need to be unnecessarily regimented and strict, but there are minimum basic guidelines which Prabhupada has given us, which will separate those who actually want to be Krishna conscious from those who don't. So from tomorrow, I'll take questions and answers in my seminar on various topics. And so you can please write down. I'd like to discuss that question. That's one of my favorite subjects. That question which came up this morning about Vedic culture and Vaishnava culture. It's a huge topic, very big topic. So I'd like to speak about that also. I've written an essay on that, which I want to put in my book on Vaishnava culture, on what is the meaning of Vedic culture and Vaishnava culture, Indian culture, Hindu culture. What are all these terms? What do they mean? And how do they overlap? Where do they not overlap?
What are other topics you'll be speaking?
I don't know. Let's see what the questions are.
So each day you have to...
No, actually my seminar was love and peace.
Every day.
Yeah, but I was thinking maybe I'll take some questions, and that would be all. If I was at the summer camp in Croatia, the love and peace would be good every day. I'd be much more heavy about it too. But here, you see, they're already. It's preaching to the choir here. You know that saying? You don't know that. It's an English saying, preaching to the choir. It means if you're preaching like heavy Christianity to the people, they're in the Christian choir, they already accept it. So you don't have to preach to them, they already know. You can preach to them, but there's no the real ones you have to preach to are all the, like the people who are not Christians. So you're preaching the basic principles of Christianity to the choir, there's no real need. The choir, you know what this means? They sing, they come to the church and they sing hymns. It's actually very nice. So, No, I can just take general questions and answers like that. That's also fun, because fun means transcendental fun, not for sense gratification. But there are so many questions. In Lithuania now, they're asking nice questions and so many things I never thought about. All of a sudden you have to think, oh, what's the answer to that? You have to think. You have to go to some philosophical level which you'd never thought of before. So I'd like to discuss that. Yeah. This Vaishnav culture and Vedic culture, I have this book here, Glimpses of Traditional Indian Life, with including one section by Lokanath Maharaj in that book about his childhood life, which he's going to elaborate more in an upcoming book. Like me, he has many upcoming books, which remain upcoming for many years. Yes, please.
We're making a red point how sex is just a sex. There's nothing spiritual. And so I have this question about sex is just a sex of.
Well, of course it can be that dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatashava. If it's engaged in Krishna's service, that's different to the donkey sex.
So many of our acharyas, they were great saintly grahasthas.
Yeah, so many rishis. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So when they indulge, or they are the wife and husband union, they are sacred, a saintly person. So is that any way different?
Yes.
Let me finish.
Yeah. Sorry.
Or is it that's sacred because dharma viruddha bhuteshu, it is not contrary, or it is meant to procreate Krishna conscious offsprings. Is for that reason is it different, sacred, or is it different?
Yeah, for that reason, because they're with a specific purpose of producing saintly children, and they'll even the sankalp will come maybe months or even years before that they'll meditate on how we want to produce Krishna conscious child, like Sutapa and Prishni. For years they're performing austerities with the aim of having a child of the level of Narayana. So their whole outlook was very much pure. I mean, it's so different from the modern age, in which it's wholly and solely based on the whole society is based on this gross sense gratification, and there was self-control. It wasn't as again John Lennon. I've quoted him almost as much as the Gita in this class, but he said he's an acharya from How to Go to Hell, but he said that most children are born over a bottle of whiskey on Saturday night. Means there's no sense. It just happens, like the animals. They don't think. They feel an urge and they want to indulge it. But the self-controlled householders, they plan in advance and they actually choose a time. That means they're very much self-controlled. It's quite a different prospect to that of something which just kind of happens. They choose a time. That means astrologically what is favorable, and then at the season when the woman she's fertile, and all these different things. Prabhupada mentions in one purport that about something about, I can't remember exactly, Krishna conscious householders, they can enjoy celestial happiness. So he's saying that sex is celestial happiness. So, but it would seem that for persons of such controlled senses that they wouldn't that having prepared their consciousness and that they wouldn't just sink suddenly down to the level of the pig and the dog. There's a very specific purpose they have in mind. And we find that generation after generation in purified families, they actually produce children of very high caliber. The Brahmin families worshipping the Lord. I've seen in Sri Rangam some. Were you there then when we went there? Those two young boys. I mean, they were like 20 years old. Very, very pure-hearted. Now they must be 25, 26. But very, very pure. Worshipping the Lord, reciting prayers. So it's possible. Prabhupada said we want to create a new class of Brahmanas. So if the Brahmanas can come by Krishna consciousness or by birth also. So if the parents are actually purified, then hopefully they should produce children of purified consciousness. Of course, that also requires not only Garbhadhan sanskar, but so many other sanskars. Otherwise, they may be led astray. But it would appear to me that it's a whole. We're talking about that the attitude is so different that I don't think we can begin to compare the sects of that our acharyas and great saintly persons engage in with that of the common materialists. They don't have an attitude of enjoying this material world. Yeah. He said, I'd be prepared to, if I was sure of producing Krishna conscious children, I would be prepared to have sex 100 times. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually did. He brought his children up in an atmosphere of God consciousness. But then again, not all of them took to Krishna consciousness in the way that he was Krishna conscious. If we can, we meet, sometimes we visit the homes of devotee families. They've been devotees for generations, and it's actually a very wonderful experience to visit their homes, and you'll see the pictures on their wall of their deceased forefathers, and great people actually, by culture, by family culture. Last time I was in South India, I visited one Divya Desham of the holy place of the Sri Sampradaya, Vedanarayanpuram. I can't remember the Tamil name; it's impossible. But the deity is there of Vedanarayan, and the samadhi is there also of Kulashekar Alva. So we visited. There's one Jia or Sri Vaishnav traditional. The Jiyas, some are sannyasis and some are householders. So Jiya means like Acharya. So it was very nice to visit. He knew our devotees from previously, and very nice to visit. And his son had been working as a computer software engineer, just for pecuniary necessity, monetary necessity, financial. But then after doing that for just a short time, maybe 2-3 years, he thought he didn't want. He came back. He's just going to, whatever. They don't have any money. He's just going to dedicate his life to serving the Lord, as his previous Etansa Astaya Paramanishta Ajasitam Purvatamai Mahadbi, as all the previous acharyas, as his previous family members had done. He just wants to dedicate his life for the service of the Lord. Let us starve, it doesn't matter. Because nowadays the temples are managed by the government, and they'll pay a salary of like 300 rupees a month or something. So it's ridiculous. And so the Brahmanas who for generations are worshipping the Lord, they're now worshipping this some CEO of a, or they're working in a job by necessity. It's very unfortunate. Otherwise, that family culture was there. Very purified people. We don't find such families in the West. Naturally, there's no such culture. Now you have to start that. You have to start a new generation. New generations. Now I'm talking about by family line also, by So please, husbands and wives, live together in love and peace. Krishna in the center of your lives. Really, if we should adopt this Vedic culture very deeply. Otherwise, we can't have love and peace. If we maintain our Western way of thinking, there's no question of love and peace. There's no question of happiness. So everything about the Vedic culture, as much as we adopt it, that much we will benefit. Really, it's the way of life given by God to help us come to Him. And the Western way of life is developed, the modern Western way of life is developed out of, if we see its philosophical roots, it comes out of atheism. The modern way of, it's a whole long story, but it comes out of the atheistic philosophers who rejected the church. And it's just based on sense gratification. So it may be difficult for us to accept these things. Just like in the Western world, women and men are all equal in social roles, and the way the society is set up, it practically has to be like that. That's why Prabhupada wanted to set up our own communities, so we can live according to our own needs. I saw this morning, we were driving out of Ljubljana, we saw all these, so many, what is it, 6:30 in the morning, so many young women cycling, going into the city, going to work. It seems very strange to me. Why going to work? Why should they be going to work? Is there, they don't have a husband who is giving them a home. They have to go to work. They're so unfortunate. They have to. But they think this is an opportunity. Oh, I have a career. I'm so fortunate. I'm equal with the men. But then they grow up. No family. There's no family. One parent family means no family. It's a big topic. It's not one topic. It's a whole galaxy of topics. Basically, what Prabhupada gave us, the plan Prabhupada gave us to live, it is the way which we can live peacefully in this world and actually develop our love for Krishna. Okay, I'm going to finish here. Yes, I have that book, Glimpses of Traditional Indian Life, which is supposed to give some idea of how we can live in this world in a very peaceful and civilized and cultured way and develop our Krishna consciousness.
From the store of Love of Godhead here. Where is the book? Maharaj will sign if you buy that book now.
I think some of them have, some of the older devotees they have. This is reprinted after many years. And a new book I have, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because you're not going to buy one. I won't allow you. Yeah. This is my... Oh, all right, I'll give it to you. That's your what do they call that?
Then I will give you my book when I publish my
That's the fee I'm giving you for your contribution to Glimpses of Traditional Indian Life. I originally made this book, I was thinking for India. People don't know Mahaprabhu. And it's already translated in Tamil, and Gujarati, and trying to get it done in Marathi. Hindi, it's translated. It's come out in Russian also. Because most devotees, they're a little lazy to read the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. But hopefully after reading this, they'll get inspiration to do so. So that's the idea. We want to mass distribute it in India so people can know who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and get inspiration.
I want to get inspiration.
You're giving inspiration. It would be nice in Marathi also, because they already have practically they have the culture. More than other places in India. They have the culture. Maybe in Marathi we can write something about that also, how. Actually there should be different introductions for each language.
Yeah, Prabhupada compares Warkari's Sankirtan party with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's resemblance.
Actually that's a good idea. We should have different, and in Gujarat we can talk about how the Gujarati people, their culture is based on Krishna culture. Krishna is a Gujarati, as Prabhupada wrote in one letter. He's an adopted Gujarati. He left Mathura and went to live in Gujarat, Saurashtra, Kathiawadi. Yeah, so other books are there. Beginner's Guide to Krishna Consciousness in Slovenian and also in Hrvatski. Is that how you say it? I said it. And in English also. And other books, which books are there? The Story of Rasikananda, very inspiring for preachers. Now, this is for culture, this is Vedic culture, we're talking about Vedic culture. So practically that Vedic culture is imbibed by hearing Ramayana and Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam. What qualities we should imbibe? We can learn from Rama, who is the Maryada Purushottam, the Supreme Lord who came to teach the proper culture. And Sita Devi, she is the ideal wife. And from Hanuman, Vibhishana, we can learn their qualities. This is how the culture was imbibed, not by saying, you should do this, you should do that. That's also there. But mostly by what are the inspiring qualities, the character of Lord Ram. So, this is very important. Ramayana. In Baroda now, one devotee, he's inspired by Mahabharata and so he's giving every week one class on Mahabharata. Then he wants to go through Harivangsha. So I think that maybe in all our centers we could do like that, if there's someone who's there to do it, because traditionally in India it was there, and especially Mahabharata and Ramayana they'd learn at home, but the Bhagavad especially you have to learn from an acharya. But Mahabharata and Ramayana you hear at home. But now it's not at home, so maybe we have to bring to television. Yeah, but that you don't get. I mean, all the subtle points and all the important teachings you don't get from the TV version. This is my memories of Srila Prabhupada also. And Jai Srila Prabhupada. So if anyone would like to take these books, message to the youth of India. You have to make a message to the youth of Slovenia. It's the same ultimate purport. Chant Hare Krishna. But maybe it's a little different. CDs are there also. Thank you very much to Jyotirmay Prabhu for producing all these. There's a whole bunch of them. Yeah. And Jyotirmay Prabhu, with the help of his Dharma Patni, actually she translated this book. Yeah, so if anyone wants, please come and get them. I'm waiting. What's your next book? You have several. You're like me. You write several books at a time, and they take many years to come out. I'm stuck in the same thing. It's easy to start books, but to finish them is a big job.
10 books ahead of me.
Yeah, and I have 5 still being in the process of being made. It was 6, now it came down to... The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu book was sitting for years, and then I just finished it. So now it's down to 5 books pending. And this year I really want to finish that book on Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. When I go back to India, I just have to sit down and finish it.
On 108th anniversary year offering.
Yeah.
That will be pleasing to Prabhupada.
Yeah. It just keeps on growing. Growing and growing. I could never imagine it would...
Next volume, just publish what you have.
No, but the thing is that the way you get material, and it may go in one volume, it's not like you get it all in order. It comes, you find out something which is from the early life, and then if the book's already published, then you can't do anything with it. Oh, that reminds me, actually. All right, well, Hare Krishna. I guess